The rancher who saved two Apache girls and they came back to love him. The sun had barely begun to rise over the wide open plains, casting long shadows over the rolling hills and golden fields of the ranch. The rancher, a man in his 40s, with weathered skin and strong hands from years of hard work, saddled his horse in the cool morning air. His life had always been simple, guided by the rhythms of the land and the needs of the cattle he cared for. Every day began the same way, checking fences, feeding the animals, and riding through the fields to make sure everything was as it should be. Yet on this day his routine would change in a way he never expected. As he rode along the narrow dirt trail near the river that ran along the edge of his property, he noticed something unusual. Two figures were moving erratically near the riverbank. From a distance they looked like small children struggling to stay upright on the slippery rocks. The rancher's instincts immediately went on high alert. The river was fast and dangerous, swollen from recent rains, and it would be easy for someone to lose their footing. He urged his horse to move closer, carefully navigating the uneven terrain. The closer he got, the clearer it became that these were not ordinary children from the nearby town. Their skin was a deep, rich shade, and their dark hair fell in long braids that hinted at their Apache heritage. They seemed scared and uncertain, their eyes wide as they tried to keep their balance on the slick river stones. The rancher could see one of the girls slipping, her foot sliding dangerously close to the rushing water. Without a second thought, he shouted, "Hold on! I'll help you!" The girls froze, unsure whether to trust the stranger calling out to them. Fear was written on their faces, but there was also a desperate need for help that overcame their hesitation. He dismounted and waded into the shallow edge of the river, the water cold against his boots. His hands were steady as he reached out to the first girl, who was trembling from head to toe. "Grab my hand," he said calmly, and slowly, carefully, he pulled her back to solid ground. Her eyes were wide with relief, but she still held back, unsure whether she could fully trust him. The second girl was even closer to the strong current. The rancher could see her small body wobble and then fall partially into the water. Without hesitation, he lunged forward, catching her just as the river tried to sweep her away. He pulled her safely to the bank, holding her tight until he was sure she was out of danger. Both girls were soaked and shivering, but alive. The rancher knelt down in front of them, trying to meet their eyes without frightening them further. "It's okay now," he said gently. "You're safe. You don't have to be afraid." His voice was calm, steady, and patient, showing them that he meant no harm. Slowly, the girls began to relax. They huddled together, still unsure, but less tense than before. Where is our home?" the older girl finally asked, her voice small and shaky. She looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and fear. "Don't worry about that right now," the rancher replied. "Let's get you both somewhere safe first." He gestured toward the dry land behind him, where the grass was high and the ground firm. "We can figure out the rest once you're out of danger." He led them to a small clearing nearby, making sure to stay low and calm so he wouldn't startle them. The girls walked cautiously beside him, still unsure of what to expect. Once they were a safe distance from the river, he knelt again, offering them some water from his canteen. "Drink this," he said softly. "It will help you warm up." The older girl hesitated, looking at the water and then at him. After a moment she took it, sipping slowly. The younger one mimicked her, holding the cup with both hands, her eyes never leaving the rancher's face. He noticed how careful they were, how they seemed to measure every action and word, as if unsure whether the world could truly be trusted.
I'm sorry," the older girl said after a few moments. "We didn't mean to—"
"Get in trouble." Her voice was soft, almost a whisper. "You're not in trouble," the rancher reassured her. "Accidents happen. The important thing is that you're safe now. That's all that matters." He smiled gently, and this time it seemed to reach her. She relaxed slightly, the tension in her shoulders easing. The rancher noticed their clothes were wet and torn from the riverbank rocks. He offered his jacket to the younger girl, and she wrapped herself in it gratefully, shivering less now. The older girl accepted a blanket he had brought from his saddlebag. the warmth giving them both a sense of comfort they hadn't felt in hours. While the girls rested, the rancher thought about what to do next. He knew their family would be worried sick. He also knew the local town might not understand their Apache background, and that prejudices could make things more complicated. He decided that the safest option was to bring them home himself. But first, he needed to make sure they were calm and willing to follow him. "Do you trust me?" he asked gently. The older girl looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. The younger one followed her lead, still holding on to his jacket. "Good," he said. "Then we'll get you back to your family and everything will be okay." He led them along a less dangerous path toward the outskirts of the ranch, keeping a careful eye on every step. The girls walked close to him, trusting him more with each step. The rancher could see the relief in their eyes as the familiar sights of home began to appear in the distance. Trees, small hills, and eventually smoke rising from chimneys reminded them of safety and warmth. As they approached their family's home, the girls' parents came running. Fear and worry etched deeply on their faces. "Girls, are you all right?" their mother cried, rushing forward to embrace them. The rancher stood back for a moment, letting the reunion happen, feeling a quiet satisfaction in knowing he had done the right thing. The girls clung to their parents, their earlier fear replaced by tears of relief. They looked back at the rancher, their eyes shining with gratitude and admiration. The rancher tipped his hat politely and said, "They're safe now. That's all that matters." The parents invited him to stay for a meal, offering thanks that went beyond words. But the rancher declined politely, saying he had work to do back at his ranch. He watched as the family moved inside, the girls waving timidly from the doorway. The image stayed with him, their faces full of relief and a strange, quiet connection that felt deeper than a simple rescue. Even after he returned to his ranch, the memory of the two girls lingered. He found himself thinking about them often, wondering how they were faring, and hoping that the small act of courage had made a lasting impact on their lives. Little did he know the bond formed that day would grow over the years into something much more profound than anyone could have imagined. That day the rancher learned something important, not just about bravery or skill, but about trust, connection, and the quiet power of helping someone when they needed most. The river, the danger, and the fear all faded in memory, leaving only the image of two young girls, alive and safe, and the feeling that a small act of courage could change lives in ways that time would reveal. From that moment on, the rancher's life took on a subtle new rhythm. Every morning on the ranch carried the echoes of that day by the river, the sound of rushing water, the feeling of cold, wet clothing, and the silent bond formed with two young girls who had trusted him when it mattered most. It was a memory he would carry forever, a reminder that true courage is not measured in grand gestures, but in the quiet moments where help is given and lives are saved. Days turned into weeks after that day by the river, and life on the ranch slowly returned to its usual rhythm. The rancher went about his work as he always had, feeding the cattle, checking fences, and riding across the open plains. Yet, in the quiet moments between chores, his mind often wandered back to the two young girls he had rescued. He wondered how they were doing, whether they had fully recovered from the fright, and if the small gesture of help he had offered had made a difference in their lives. The girls, too, could not stop thinking about him. They spoke in whispers to one another about the quiet, strong man who had saved them, without asking for anything in return. He had been calm when the river roared around them, careful when he pulled them to safety, and patient when they hesitated to trust him. That memory stayed with them like a warm light, and they often found themselves drawn to the edge of the ranch, watching him from a distance. One morning, the rancher noticed movement near the far side of his property. Two small figures were carefully stepping along the fence line, peering at him as if unsure whether to approach. At first, he thought it might be his imagination, but then he saw them clearly. The two girls, the same girls from the river. He stopped what he was doing and watched as they cautiously made their way closer. When they were close enough, he called out in a friendly voice, "Good morning! What brings you here?" The older girl hesitated, then stepped forward. We wanted to see you," she said softly, her voice almost shy. The younger girl followed, clutching her sister's hand for courage. The rancher dismounted and walked toward them, keeping his movements slow and non-threatening. Well, I'm glad to see you both. Come on, don't be afraid. He smiled, and this time the girls didn't flinch. They followed him to a patch of soft grass where they could sit. Do you want some water? He asked, offering a canteen. The girls nodded eagerly. As they drank, the rancher noticed a curiosity in their eyes, the way they took in every detail of the ranch, the wide open fields, the cattle grazing, and the horses in the corral. You like it here? He asked. Yes, the older girl replied quietly. It's peaceful. That's the way it should be, the rancher said. Out here, you can hear the wind, the animals, and the earth. It's a good place to think and to learn. He paused, then added, and there's a lot to learn if you're willing to watch and listen. Over the next few weeks, the girls began visiting him regularly, always careful not to intrude but drawn by a sense of trust and curiosity. The rancher, for his part, welcomed them quietly, showing them small tasks around the ranch, feeding the horses, checking the fences, and even teaching them how to read the weather by watching the clouds. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, the rancher taught them about the horses. Each one has its own personality, he explained. Some are gentle, some are stubborn, and some are brave. You have to learn to understand them just like you understand people. The girls listened carefully, their eyes wide with fascination. They had never spent much time around animals, but they quickly learned to be patient and observant. The rancher showed them how to feed the horses calmly, how to approach them without startling them, and how to notice subtle signs of discomfort or happiness. You see, he said, gently stroking the neck of a dark brown mare, life teaches you lessons if you pay attention. These horses are good teachers. And sometimes people are too. The girls looked at him, understanding the deeper meaning in his words. They were learning more than just ranch skills. They were learning about patience, trust, and the quiet strength that came from experience and care. One day, while helping repair a broken fence, the older girl asked, "Why do you help people, even when you don't know them?" The rancher paused, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Because it's the right thing to do, he said simply. I was raised to believe that helping others when they need it is more important than worrying about yourself. Sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's risky, but it's always worth it. The girls thought about that as they worked together, hammering nails and tying posts. They had seen the truth of his words when he had rescued them from the river. Now they were beginning to understand that kindness and courage were not just actions, they were a way of life. As the days passed, the bond between the rancher and the girls grew stronger. They began to share small stories about their lives, their family, their traditions, and the lessons they had learned from their Apache heritage. They told him about the songs their grandparents sang, the stories of the land, and the ways they honored nature. The rancher listened with genuine interest, asking questions and showing respect for their culture. You have a strong spirit, he said one day, watching the younger girl carefully tend to a small injured bird they had found. It's clear that you care deeply, and that matters more than anything. The girl smiled shyly, feeling seen and understood in a way they had rarely experienced before. They began to see him not just as a protector, but as someone who respected them, valued their thoughts, and treated them with kindness. One afternoon, a sudden storm rolled in from the west. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the wind picked up, making the trees sway and the tall grass bend. The girls were nervous, and the rancher quickly led them to the safety of a small shed he used for storage. Inside, they watched as the rain poured down and lightning flashed across the sky. The younger girl clutched the older one's arm, and the older girl looked at the rancher with wide eyes. Do storms always come so fast here? She asked. Sometimes, he said calmly. But storms pass and the land recovers. People do too if they have courage and patience. They listened to the rain together, the sound soothing rather than frightening now, because they were with someone they trusted. The rancher told stories of his own childhood, of growing up learning to work with the land, of mistakes he had made, and lessons he had learned. The girls laughed quietly at some of his stories and listened intently to others, feeling a connection that went beyond words. Over time, they began to help him with more difficult tasks, feeding the cattle, mending fences after storms, and even riding alongside him when he checked the fields. The rancher taught them to pay attention to the land, to notice the movement of animals, and to understand the weather. He taught them to be careful, patient, and thoughtful in every action. One evening as they rested after a long day, the older girl asked, "Do you ever feel lonely out here?" The rancher looked at the horizon where the sun was setting behind distant hills. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but I find company in the work I do, in the animals I care for, and in people who are brave enough to trust and learn. People like you make it less lonely." The girls exchanged glances, feeling a warmth in their hearts. They realized that the rancher's life, though simple and rugged, was rich with purpose and integrity. They began to feel a quiet admiration for him, a sense that he was someone they could rely on no matter what. Their visits became a routine, though unspoken. Every few days they would appear at the edge of the ranch, helping where they could, learning more about the land and sharing more about themselves. The rancher welcomed them always, offering guidance, care, and respect. The bond that had begun with rescue and gratitude was growing into something deeper, a connection built on trust, respect, and the shared experience of learning and living together. By the time the weeks had turned into months, the rancher noticed something remarkable. The girls had grown more confident, capable, and cheerful. Their laughter became a familiar sound on the ranch, and their curiosity and energy brought a new life to the quiet landscape. The rancher felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing he had helped them in a meaningful way, not just saving them from danger, but helping them grow in strength and courage. One evening, as the sun cast golden light over the rolling plains, they sat together watching the sky change colors. The rancher spoke softly. "You've come a long way since that day by the river. You've shown courage, patience, and kindness. Never forget that these qualities are stronger than fear." The girls nodded, their eyes shining with understanding. They felt a sense of pride and gratitude, not only for what he had done for them, but for the way he had taught them to see the world differently. The rancher had become more than a protector. He was a teacher, a guide, and a friend they could trust with their hearts. That evening ended quietly, with the girls returning home as the stars began to fill the night sky. The rancher watched them go, a quiet smile on his face. He knew this was only the beginning of a story that would continue to unfold, a story of trust, respect, and the bond between people who choose to see the best in each other. The summer had been unusually hot that year. The sun hung high in the sky and the plains were dry, the grass brittle underfoot. The rancher worked tirelessly, checking fences and making sure the cattle were safe and healthy. The girls had become frequent visitors by now, helping with chores, learning about the land, and spending time with him. Their bond had grown stronger over the weeks and months. They had learned to trust one another, and the rancher had come to value their company more than he expected. One afternoon, while they were riding along the far edge of the ranch checking the fences, the sky began to darken in an unusual way. Thick, black smoke rose in the distance, and a strong wind carried the smell of burning wood. The rancher's heart sank. Fires could spread quickly in these dry plains, and he knew the danger that lay ahead. "Stay close," he told the girls firmly. "We need to be careful. The fire could reach us faster than we expect." The older girl nodded, gripping the reins tightly, her eyes wide with fear but also determination. The younger one held on to her sister, trusting completely in the rancher's guidance. Together they rode toward the edge of the fire, careful to avoid smoke and flames, trying to reach the families and animals that might be in danger. As they approached, the situation became clear. The fire was spreading rapidly, and a small group of nearby families, including some from the Apache community, were struggling to move their livestock to safety. Panic was in the air. Children cried, animals stampeded, and the wind carried sparks in every direction. The rancher acted quickly. "Form a line. Move the animals slowly and steadily. Don't panic." His voice cut through the chaos, calm and commanding. The girls helped wherever they could, guiding animals along safe paths and reassuring frightened children. At one point, a frightened horse broke free, running toward the fire. The rancher chased after it, shouting calmly to guide it back. The older girl followed him, helping to block the path and calm the animal. "You can do this," she whispered. Together, they managed to redirect the horse to safety. The younger girl helped families carry what little they could save from their homes. She felt a surge of pride and courage she hadn't known she possessed. The rancher noticed her determination and smiled briefly, silently proud of the bravery both girls were showing. The fire roared closer, and the heat was intense. Smoke filled the air, making it difficult to see and breathe. The rancher led the group to a small clearing, where the ground was less dry and safer from the flames. He instructed everyone to stay low and move carefully, protecting the most vulnerable first. The girls followed his lead, ensuring that no one was left behind. Hours seemed to pass as they worked tirelessly. Sweat poured down their faces, their hands were blistered from gripping ropes and guiding animals, but they never stopped. Every time a child or animal was saved, the rancher gave a quiet nod or a reassuring word, keeping morale high. The girls felt a deep sense of purpose and connection. They were part of something bigger than themselves, something that required courage, patience, and trust. At one point, a large tree caught fire and fell across the path they had just cleared. The rancher acted quickly, pulling the girls out of the way and directing others to safety. Sparks landed near them, and the heat was nearly unbearable. The younger girl clutched her sister's hand tightly, but neither of them panicked. They had learned to trust the rancher, and in that trust, they found the strength to keep going. By late afternoon, the fire was finally under control, thanks to the efforts of the rancher, the girls, and the community. Though much had been damaged, no lives were lost, and most of the animals were safe. Exhausted but relieved, the group gathered together, taking deep breaths and wiping sweat and soot from their faces. The girls looked at the rancher, their eyes filled with admiration. You saved us again," the older girl said softly. "Not just from the fire, but from everything that could have gone wrong." The rancher shook his head, a tired smile on his face. "I didn't do it alone. You helped too. Courage isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about doing what's right, together." The younger girl nodded, feeling a sense of pride she had never felt before. She realized that bravery was not about being fearless. It was about facing danger when it mattered, and helping others even when it was difficult. The rancher had shown them both by example, and now they had proven to themselves that they could rise to challenges they had never imagined. That evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with reds and golds, the rancher sat with the girls near a small fire, tending to minor cuts and bruises from the day. He listened to their stories of fear and courage, offering gentle advice and encouragement. The girls felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for being saved, but for the lessons they had learned and the example they had witnessed. "You have grown so much," the rancher said quietly, looking at the older girl. "Not just in strength, but in heart. That's what matters most." The girls smiled, feeling seen and understood in a way that few people had ever acknowledged. They realized that the bond they had with the rancher was more than gratitude. It was respect, trust, and a quiet admiration that had grown over time. Over the next few days, the rancher continued to help the families rebuild and recover. The girls assisted eagerly, learning how to mend fences, move supplies, and care for the animals that had been frightened by the fire. The work was hard, but it brought them closer together. They shared laughter in small moments, comforted one another when exhausted, and learned the true meaning of perseverance and responsibility. One afternoon, while repairing a fence, the older girl asked, "Do you ever get scared?" The rancher paused, gripping the post with his strong hands. "Of course I do," he admitted. "Everyone gets scared. Courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about doing what's right even when you are afraid. That's the real test of strength." The younger girl thought about that, remembering the fire, the rushing river, and the moments when she had felt powerless. She realized that courage was not something you were born with. It was something you learned through experience, through facing challenges, and through trusting yourself and those who care about you. The girls began to see the rancher not only as a protector but as a teacher and guide. They respected his wisdom, admired his strength, and felt safe under his watchful eyes. They had witnessed his courage firsthand, and that example inspired them to act bravely in ways they had never imagined. One evening, as the sky turned purple and the stars began to twinkle, they sat together near the rancher's cabin. The girls were tired, their hands calloused from hard work, but their hearts were full. "You taught us so much," the older girl said softly. "About courage, about helping others, about being strong even when things are hard." The rancher smiled quietly. "You've learned well, but the most important thing is that you have your own strength now. You don't need me to face challenges anymore. You only need to trust yourself." The younger girl leaned against him slightly, feeling a sense of comfort and belonging. She realized that the bond they shared had grown into something deeper than trust or gratitude. It was a quiet connection built over shared experiences, lessons learned, and challenges overcome together. As they sat under the night sky, listening to the wind whisper through the plains, the rancher knew that the girls had changed. They were no longer the frightened children he had rescued from the river months ago. They were brave, capable, and filled with a quiet confidence that came from surviving danger and learning from it. And the girls in turn knew that their feelings for the rancher had grown as well. Not just gratitude, but a deep respect and affection that went beyond words. They had seen his courage, his kindness, and his wisdom, and it had left an imprint on their hearts they could never forget. That night, as they returned home under the stars, the girls felt a quiet determination. They would carry the lessons they had learned, the courage they had found, and the bond they shared with the rancher into every part of their lives. And though they did not yet understand the full depth of what they felt, they knew that this connection would continue to shape them, guiding them through challenges, triumphs, and the quiet moments in between. The rancher watched them disappear into the distance, a quiet smile on his face. He knew that life would always bring challenges, but he also knew that courage, kindness, and trust could carry people through even the darkest moments. The bond formed through danger and perseverance was strong, and it would continue to grow, shaping all their lives in ways yet to be seen. The seasons had changed again, bringing the soft chill of autumn to the wide-open plains. The rancher continued his daily routine, tending to the land, caring for the animals, and checking fences. Yet the quiet rhythm of his life now had a new richness. The two girls, now young women, had grown alongside him, visiting regularly, learning about the land, and deepening the bond that had begun months ago. They had matured into confident, strong, and capable young women. Their laughter now echoed across the ranch, brightening even the quietest corners. The rancher watched them with pride, remembering the frightened children he had rescued from the river long ago. Time had shaped them, but it had also strengthened the connection they shared. A connection built on trust, courage, and countless moments of shared work and life lessons. One crisp morning, the older girl arrived early, carrying a basket of freshly baked bread. "We thought you might like a warm breakfast," she said with a shy smile. The younger girl carried herbs and vegetables she had picked from a small garden they had started near the cabin. Their thoughtfulness touched the rancher deeply. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes about their care, respect, and affection. "Thank you," the rancher said, his voice warm. "It means more than you know." He helped them unpack the basket and admired their efforts. "You've learned well, not just about the land, but about kindness and thoughtfulness too."
After breakfast, they set out to help with the cattle.
The girls moved confidently now, guiding the animals and working alongside the rancher with ease. He noticed how much they had grown, not just physically, but in spirit. They were independent, brave, and thoughtful, yet their bond with him had remained strong. They trusted him completely, and he trusted them in return. As they rode across the fields, the older girl spoke softly. "We've learned so much from you," she said. "Not just about the ranch, but about life. You've taught us courage, patience, and kindness in ways no one else ever could." The rancher looked at her, his heart swelling with quiet emotion. "And you've taught me something too," he replied. "You've reminded me that life is richer when shared. Courage, kindness, and love. They grow stronger when you give them freely and when you accept them from others." The younger girl leaned slightly closer to him, feeling safe and understood. "We we want to keep helping, she said. Not just because of the ranch, but because of what we've learned from you. The rancher smiled. Then let's keep learning together. There's always more to see, more to understand, and more ways to help others.
As the day went on, the work continued. They repaired fences, checked the livestock, and prepared for the coming winter.
Each task was a chance to bond, to teach, and to learn. The rancher watched them grow stronger, more confident, and more self-assured. He realized that the bond he shared with them had deepened into something much more profound than friendship or gratitude. It was a connection that touched the heart, built on trust, shared experience, and quiet love. One evening after a long day of work, they sat together near the cabin. The sky was painted with the soft colors of sunset, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. The girls were tired but happy, their hands marked with calluses and dirt from the day's labor. The rancher poured them warm tea and watched them drink in silence, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "You've grown so much," he said softly, looking at both of them. "From frightened children by the river to the strong, brave women you are today. I'm proud of you both, more than words can say." The older girl's eyes glistened in the fading light. "We're proud too," she said. "Proud to know you, to learn from you, and to share this time with you." The younger girl reached out and gently touched his arm, a quiet gesture of affection and trust. We care about you," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The rancher felt a warmth spread through his chest. He had never expected this. The feelings he had for them had grown quietly over time, shaped by shared experiences, mutual respect, and the deep connection forged through courage and care. "I care about you both too," he said. "More than I can ever put into words." From that moment, the bond they shared shifted subtly but profoundly. The girls no longer saw him only as a protector or teacher. They saw him as someone who understood, valued, and cherished them. The rancher no longer saw them only as those he had saved. He saw the women they had become, strong, brave, and full of life, whose presence enriched his own in ways he had never imagined. Over the following months, their relationship continued to grow. The girls helped him with more than just ranch work. They shared stories of their lives, their dreams, and their fears. They laughed together, worked together, and quietly supported one another through the challenges of daily life. Every moment spent together deepened their connection, weaving a tapestry of trust, respect, and love that would last a lifetime. One cold morning, the older girl approached him with a thoughtful expression. "We were thinking," she said, "maybe we could plant a garden together, something that grows every year, just like the bond we share." The rancher nodded, smiling. "I like that idea." A garden is more than just plants. It's care, patience, and time, just like any relationship worth keeping. They worked side by side to plant seeds, tend the soil, and water the young plants. It became a quiet ritual, a symbol of their growing bond and shared life. Each seed was a promise of care, each plant a testament to their trust, respect, and affection. As winter approached, the rancher realized how much the girls had become part of his life. Their presence brought warmth to the cabin, joy to the plains, and a sense of purpose beyond the work he had always done. He had given them safety, guidance, and courage, but in return, they had given him something equally valuable: the knowledge that life was richer when shared, and that love and connection could grow quietly, steadily, and strongly over time. One snowy evening, as the first flakes fell softly onto the ranch, the three of them sat together near the fire. The girls shared stories of their childhood, their family, and the lessons they had learned. The rancher listened, his heart full, realizing that these moments were more precious than any he had experienced before. The older girl spoke softly, her voice filled with warmth. "We want to stay close to you always. You've given us so much, and we care about you deeply." The younger girl nodded, adding, "We've learned from you about courage, kindness, and trust. And we've learned about love too. The kind that grows quietly and stays strong no matter what happens."
The rancher felt tears prick his eyes.
He had never expected this, yet it felt natural, as if their connection had been building quietly for years, through every challenge, lesson, and shared moment. "I care about you both," he said softly. "I have for a long time. You've brought more joy and meaning to my life than I could ever have imagined." The three of them sat together in the warmth of the firelight, the snow falling softly outside. They shared a quiet, unspoken understanding, a connection forged through trust, courage, and shared experience, now blossoming into something deeper. Love, respect, and gratitude flowed between them, strong and steady, like the river that had brought them together months before. As the years went by, their bond only grew stronger. The girls continued to help on the ranch, but they also pursued their own dreams and ambitions, always returning to the place and the man who had shaped their lives. The rancher watched with pride and affection, knowing that the connection they shared was unbreakable. They celebrated milestones together, harvests, birthdays, and quiet evenings by the fire. They shared laughter and tears, challenges and triumphs, always supporting one another through every moment of life. The girls' love for the rancher was quiet yet deep, built on years of trust, guidance, and shared experience. And the rancher's love for them was equally profound, a combination of gratitude, pride, and the joy of seeing the lives he had touched grow strong and vibrant. One warm evening as the sun set over the plains, the three of them stood together, watching the sky turn shades of pink and gold. The rancher felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that life had brought them together in a way that was rare and precious. He had saved them once, yes, but they had also saved him, bringing warmth, love, and meaning to his life that he had never expected. The older girl took his hand gently. "We're here," she said softly. "Always?" The younger girl nodded, smiling. "We'll always be with you. We care about you and we love you." The rancher looked at them, his heart full beyond measure. "And I love you both," he replied, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You've given me more than I ever could have imagined. You've given me life, purpose, and joy." The sun dipped below the horizon, and the three of them stood together, a quiet family formed not by blood, but by courage, kindness, and love. The bond they shared was unbreakable, a testament to the power of trust, gratitude, and enduring connection. That night, under a blanket of stars, the rancher and the two young women sat together by the fire, their hearts intertwined through years of shared experiences, trials, and quiet moments of care. The story that had begun with a rescue at the river had grown into something far greater, a story of love, respect, and the enduring power of human connection. And as the wind whispered across the plains, carrying the scent of the earth and the quiet strength of the land, it seemed to tell a simple truth. Courage, kindness, and love, when given freely, can change lives, bind hearts, and create a bond that lasts a lifetime.